Okay, well, we'd like to welcome everyone. This is Aljoya, Mercer Island. My name is Larry Alamo, and this is
My name is Janet.
yes, and Janet, and we are the community relations team at Aljoya, Mercer Island, and we have this great event today from Bridget Agabra, who's going to talk to you about technology today. So we're going to talk about a guide to Apple, Google, and Microsoft technology. So Bridget is very good. She's very good to talk with. Well, she'll answer your questions. She'll go over a lot of different things today. So we'll have the opportunity to have feedback back and forth today. And I just want to turn it over to Bridget and get started. So welcome to Aljoya again. Great to have you here.
Hi, thank you all for coming today. Let me just get my screen set up so that I can see some of you. So again, Richard, Hervé, Hunt, and Mike, you are the whole meeting to me. So as much response as you can give is appreciated. I thank Aljoya, gorgeous Aljoya. If you have not gone through, it is just a beautiful spot. I'm over in lovely Issaquah, enjoying an almost hot day today. And we've got all right, so today we're going to be talking about Microsoft, Google, Apple, the differences between what they offer. And there is someone, I'd like to point back to the last talk we gave, which is actually still up on the YouTube channel for Era Living. And that talk was about passwords and sort of getting all your digital ducks in a row in case an emergency happens. Larry, I think you will send out that link again. It's a really good talk. If you haven't seen it, watch it. You will be inspired to kind of put some things in order. But at the end of that talk, there was an attendee named Linda, and I see we have a Linda here. I don't know if it's the same Linda. If you are the same Linda, it is the same Linda. Okay. At the end of that talk in the question, she said, I'm going to paraphrase. You just said OneDrive and Google Drive and all of this lingo, and I don't know kind of who does what and who do I call for help. Is that fair enough, Linda? We have it on tape, so pretty much that's close to what was said. And so we already had this in the hopper, and we thought, great. So we will talk about what this lingo is, how these things work on your devices, and spoiler, there really isn't anyone to call at Google for help about anything. So the plea for help isn't quite going to be answered maybe in the way that was hoped, but we will be able to have the information to set up your technology in a smooth way. And when you are talking to people who live in Seattle's East Side, especially people who are retired, it just could be that some of the people in this room literally designed the software or hardware for these companies. So if you are a Microsoft retiree and you were part of the team that built Word, feel free to wave at me and go, well, that's not what we meant. Okay, so I'd like to get us started. Our path today, our learning path today is going to be in these following steps. First, I'm going to be talking about the hardware and the devices. I use those interchangeably. The hardware is something you can hold in your hand. And that's going to give us a lot of the lingo that we're going to be using in the rest of the talk, right? And in between each of these steps, we will pause for questions, right? So first we will be talking about the things you hold in your hands, the hardware. We're going to then step into mobile phones. What are the two different kinds of mobile phones? Then moving into computers and tablets, a little bit about the software that's used on all of our devices, and then the choices at the end. What do we do to make it smoother or to keep us from spending money we don't have to? Because it's very easy to overspend on software and hardware. So starting out, I'm going to go back into history a little bit. Back when personal computing was beginning, you had Apple devices. Well, not in the very beginning, but you had Apple devices, which were Macs. You had Microsoft devices, which was Windows. And you had no phones. When phones eventually arrived, they were kind of dumb phones, and they might have been just bolted into your car. But Your phone, your mobile phone didn't care what your computers were doing. All it was a phone. So this was called, back in the day, walled gardens. You had your Windows stuff, you had your Apple stuff, and your phone was not even in the garden. Okay. So I'm going to start with talking about hardware and how hardware comes to life. This is also going to be introducing us to the language that I'll be using throughout this talk. So, I'd like you guys to imagine putting on all of the safety gear that you possibly can, and we're going to China and we're going to step into one of the factories that makes these babies, right? And you pick one up off of the assembly line. I assume there's an assembly line, and you've got a box that's made of some plastic, some metal, some glass, some rare earth elements, some chips, and it just doesn't do anything. It's just a thing. So it's a device without any power, without any operating system. It's almost like a person who has died. It just is an empty vessel. Then we're going to go over to the, let's try the testing area, or when they test it to make sure it was put together correctly. Now there's some juice in it. There's some electricity going. Now you've got a box with some electricity going through it. You can see that the electricity works, but it's like a person in a coma. It still doesn't do anything. It's just this box with some power. Now at the very end of the assembly line, they're going to put some software in, and that's called the operating system. It's also called an OS for operating system. The operating system is what tells it what to do. It tells it, go look for the internet. It tells it, when somebody moves this button, get louder or quieter, get brighter or darker, do something. So the operating system tells it what to do. So now once it has power, once you have a hardware, power, and an operating system, an OS, now you've got like a regular human walking around. It can walk and talk and work and do things. Now it comes to us as users, this walking, talking human phone, and we might want to customize it a little bit. So it's like taking a person and sending them for specialized training to be a mechanic or a florist. I might put an app, excuse me, I might put an app on it that allows me to order easily from Target. And you might put an app on yours that allows you to see what's going on with Major League Baseball, you know, at one tap. Or if we're talking about a desktop computer, maybe you make a bookmark at Major League Baseball so that you're able to go to Major League Baseball very easily. So that specialized training is what we do at the end to make our machines, our devices, work the way we want to. So our hardware can be dead, in a coma, up walking around, or somebody with specialized training. We are going to start today with cell phones. Cell phones are divided into two categories, and here they are. Let's step in. What's the difference between these? Oh, I see it says phones instead of phones. So maybe I should just call them phones. So Apple and Android phones are different in different ways. I'll describe these quickly so that we can keep them in mind. These differences matter all the way through to the end. Who makes the physical hardware? What kind of operating system runs it? Who can change that operating system? Who sells the phone? Who the customer connects with? And where you get new apps? Do you have to remember this? No, but you're going to be hearing about these things as we go through. First step, what makes an iPhone an iPhone? iPhones are made by Apple. Every iPhone has a subtle or not subtle little Apple image in it. You can see lightly. Okay. If it's made by Apple, it has an apple on it somewhere. They're very proud of their symbol. An iPhone has hardware that is made only by Apple, the company. It's actually made, the factory is called Foxconn in China, but it is only made by Apple, designed by Apple, It is Apple's box. The operating system that makes it wake up and do things is made by Apple. It's called iOS. The OS, you're not surprised, is for the operating system, and the I stands for iPhone. So iOS means iPhone operating system. Those only work on Apple phones, and they're only made by Apple. Only Apple can change that operating system when they make their updates every year and the little updates in between. Apple phones, iPhones, are only sold by Apple or Apple contractors, meaning you can't go down to the drugstore and buy an iPhone. You can't go to a swap meet. Do they still have swap meets? You can't go to a swap meet and buy an iPhone. Not legitimately, anyway. When you have an iPhone, an Apple iPhone, there is a strong customer tie to Apple. You're going to be doing lots of stuff with Apple. You're going to buy new apps from Apple. You're going to pay Apple for subscriptions. You're going to be dealing with Apple a lot. You pay your monthly money to your cell phone provider, but you're going to be interacting with Apple when you have an Apple phone. And you can only add new apps through the Apple App Store, which is a very highly curated place. They approve everything that goes in and out. What makes something an Android phone? So an Android phone is a short way to describe it. Everything that's not an Apple phone is an Android phone. Everything. And that's a lot of different phones, as you'll be able to see in a few moments. So an Android phone is everything that isn't an Apple phone. Android phones, the hardware is made by any company, anybody can make a phone and have it be an Android phone. So any company in the world, and by that I mean any company in China or South Korea, can make hardware that will run an Android phone. Only Apple makes Apple things, but anybody can make a basic phone. Then they take the Android operating system and put it on that phone to make it do things. Google makes the Android operating system. Everybody who makes an who makes an Android phone can make changes to that operating system to make it special for their phones. You see that with like Jitterbug. A Jitterbug looks a certain way and acts a certain way because that company customized the operating system so it is specially, it specially serves the customer. If somebody has a Samsung super high-end fancy thing with a crazy camera, Samsung has adjusted the operating system to make it work just great with that Samsung phone. And it's going to look very different from the Jitterbug phone. The developer can make changes freely to the phone, that phone's operating system, which makes it very hard to teach a class on Android phones because they're all so different. An Apple phone, an Apple iPhone, it's always running the Apple software. Maybe it's running older or newer software, but it's always that same software. With an Android phone, it could be almost anything because they can change it. Android phones are sold by a broad range of retailers. You get the really fancy ones at your cell phone provider, at your or your cable provider, anywhere. It can also be sold at a drugstore. You can get the little flip phones that you pay for monthly. As a customer, you could be connected with, if you have a Samsung phone, Samsung offers you all kinds of ways. You could store your stuff on Samsung. You could buy things from the Samsung store. You could just be all about Samsung. Or you could just use Google things because Android has a lot of Google things in it. You could have a relationship with Google. You could buy things for your Android phone from the Samsung store, the Google store, which is called Play, or you could just even go to a website and download software. So it's a really broad environment. Together, when we look at the two, iPhones are very controlled by Apple. It's a closed system. Every Apple phone every iPhone of the same model has the same operating system. They're very specialized. They like to use a lot of high-end cameras and technology, so their software is specialized for that. It's safer, and I put safer in quotation marks because it is traditionally safer because you can only put things from that Apple store in there, and they very highly vet the stuff that goes in the store. But you also don't have a ton of choices. I Bridget, can't come up with something easily and throw it up in that Apple store. It takes quite a bit to run through the system and pass their criteria. And they generally have a fairly high price point. In fact, I think that the lowest end new iPhone now costs more than the first car I ever bought, which probably says more about me than Apple. On an Android phone, you can see here's some examples of different ones. One's a Jitterbug, one's a Samsung semi-fancy one with 3 cameras, and one is I think it's Altel. They still make track phones if you like track phones. I mean the flip phones. So Android phones have open software that the developers can change around, so they look really different, very customizable. They're less safe in that there's more options for what you want to put on that. And the more options you have to put things on, the more possibility that you might get some yucky software that really shouldn't be on anyone's phone or anyone's computer. So it's less safe in that you as a user have the whole wide world of software that you can put on it. And of course, there's a really wide variety of price points, from like a $50 or $60 monthly pay phone to, the $800 really high-end Samsung. So let me go, back here for a moment. Pause. This is a pause moment where we just have any questions about these 2 kinds of phones. iPhones, Android phones, anything that could use some clarification. Oh yeah, I can see Mike, so Mike gets to talk because I can see him.
I assume consumer cellular phones are Android?
Yes.
Okay.
Basically anything that doesn't have an Apple on the back, anything that doesn't have an Apple on the back is some version of an Android phone because they're running that Android software inside. Any other questions, even from the people that I can't see? So all I can see is those 4. So Janet and Larry, if anyone else has a question, you could let them unmute.
Like for me, for example, I've always had Apple iPhone, but I looked at other phones, but I think you kind of like, once you go with a certain brand, you just kind of stay with that. Is that what your sense is? Apple
spends so much money researching exactly how to make that true. But that is, I think everybody sticks with the things they're comfortable with. I remember in college, they said in marketing, the beer you drink in college is like, I don't know, 50% more likely to be the beer that you will drink your whole life,
Yeah.
So we all like things we're comfortable with, but by the time we get to the end, maybe we'll think about some options about whether or not that actually serves us. Any other questions about the iPhone, Android?
I was wondering, if an Android, if it's less safe, can it infect an iPhone?
No. I'm not sure. An Android. So they wouldn't be connected in any way.
Oh, if somebody sent some information from an Android to an iPhone and there was something weird that showed up, can it infect?
Okay.
Like a text that had been altered or something strange like that?
Yeah, it is very uncommon. It is so uncommon to have iPhones be hacked that you basically see it in the news when it happens. And I think over the last month, we saw that there was some tracking software that was put in, a lot of journalists and political figures and things. And they said those things came in with some texts. So answer that question is extremely unlikely, except if your friend texts you a link, you know, or somebody you don't know, they send that link that says, hey, oh yeah, I think I got one of these a week ago. Hey, you're shipping, here's your shipping information. And it's got no name on it, no nothing. And I click on that, it's gonna try, and if that's a bad thing, they're gonna try and get me to put in my credit card number, my stuff. You know, they're not going to get into the phone. In a normal way, they're not going to get into the iPhone. That very specialized software that the people developed to get into the journalists and I think it was the Saudi royal family and a couple of other high target people that could. But so no, it's not going to hurt your iPhone. Yes, it could be stuff that hacks you. That comes from anywhere. That could come on your computer, your email, all of that. Does that sort of answer the question a little bit?
Sure, thank you.
And Mike has another thing, and then we'll go.
Yeah, I
back.
know, just brought that up. So it's not necessary to get antivirus software for a smartphone. Is that true?
How would I say that? I would say it depends on how you use it, really. I think there's no harm to have something like Malwarebytes on your Android phone. Samsung, again, all the Android phones are different, right? They come with a lot of software, and maybe you don't do anything with your phone except call on it. Then I wouldn't worry about it, right? If you just call and text, I wouldn't worry about it. Samsung comes with a suite of things that take care of that. Maybe the little flip phone doesn't. So you don't need it. Let's let Jack and Sharon in. You don't need it on your iPhone.
You don't.
You probably don't need it on your Android phone, depending on how you use it. I think I would have it on my Android phone if I used my Android phone. But you really don't need to if you're just using it really as a phone and texting. Okay.
So I have an iPhone and I do all kinds of things with it. Lots of Google, lots of, I pay a lot of bills through it, so forth, look things up. So I don't need, you don't think I need a antivirus?
Not antivirus.
Antivirus.
Not antivirus, because your iPhone isn't going to get virus infected.
Or anti-malware.
It's not going to get malware. What you're going to get still is lots of companies trying to get you to put in that information, which is something that antivirus and malware can't stop. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to jump back in real quick to the next steps. We did cell phones. So the next step is we're going into computers and tablets. So we're going to we're going to visit each of these areas and then put it together at the end. And okay, we're at 11 o'clock. So computer and tablet. When I talk about tablets, it's like this. It's like an iPad. Tablets are very small, light computers. You can get external keyboards for them. I think they're really neat for watching things on. They're very, very light. If you're somebody who's concerned about the other kind of computer, which is a laptop, which might weigh quite a bit, but it has, a giant screen and it has a big keyboard, and you can do a lot of work on it places. So I'm including laptops, tablets, and desktop computers in this section. And I'm not going to lean down and pull up my giant desktop computer. Right? You remember all of what desktop computers look like. Those, the big, ugly, dusty boxes that are down by your feet, probably. And when we move into the area of computers and tablets, we go from 2 players to 3 players, because of course, the big elephant in the room is Microsoft. Maybe not elephant. The big dog, the big one in the room for computers is Microsoft, because they make Windows. And Windows is an OS, an operating system. In fact, it is the operating system that is the dominant computer operating system for businesses all over the world. So you would likely have worked with a Windows operating system at some point in your life, even if you are somebody who has an iPhone and a Mac. You probably dealt with Windows in your life. So now we're going to look at phones had two basic divisions. Computers have, for our purposes, three basic divisions. I'm just talking about consumer level use of computers. So if you're a computer geek, we're not going to talk about Linux, and we're not going to talk about other things that you're doing on your own. For regular consumers, there are kind of three options when it comes to computers. And that is something that's affiliated with Apple software, something that's affiliated with Google software, and something that's affiliated with Microsoft software. And we're going to go right back to the kind of slide that shows what makes the difference. So let's talk about a Windows machine. Windows hardware can be made by any company that wants to. You will see a Windows PC. The laptop I picked up and held up was by HP, Hewlett Packard. You might have a Dell computer. You might have an Asus computer. You might have a computer that your nephew bought the pieces for and put together in a box. All of those can run Windows operating system, and then they're all Windows PCs. So the hardware can be made by anybody, even someone at home. The operating system, Windows, is made by Microsoft. It is sold by a whole bunch of retailers. You can buy a Windows PC kind of everywhere. If you use a Windows computer, meaning the laptop, desktop, tablet, you might really dig into the relationship with Microsoft. You might have Office 365 and just use all things Microsoft on it, or you might pretty much use almost nothing from Microsoft from it and just let Windows run the machine. And then you use other things to do with what you want. So your relationship may be strong with Microsoft or weak with Microsoft. And with a Windows machine, you can, tablet or desktop, you can, well, you can't really buy a CD anymore and install things, but you used to. You used to be able to buy a CD and install some software. You can go to a website and download software and install it, but be very careful when you do that. Or you can, they actually call them app stores now, but it feels very funny to me to go to the Microsoft App Store on my computer. It feels like somebody trying too hard to be a teenager. You know what I mean? Microsoft is not a cool, hip phone. You know, it just needs to realize it's not so cool and hip. But there is a Windows App Store on your Windows computer, and the symbol is like a little shopping bag, as if you're shopping. Let me just get rid of something that's in here. Okay, so Windows machine, what makes it a Windows PC or tablet is the fact that it runs the operating system that was created by Microsoft. Now, we'll go to Apple's stuff. And Apple's stuff is, if it's a computer, it's called a Mac. If it's called a tablet, like the one I showed you, it's called an iPad. So their computers are called Macs and their tablets are called iPads. And not surprisingly, the hardware is made only by Apple. Your nephew can't build a Mac or an iPad. The operating system is called, for these devices, is called the Mac OS for Macs and the iPad OS for iPads. They just changed the name for the iPad ones. These again are only sold by Apple or Apple contractors. I can't, buy a Mac at the swap meet. Again, you're going to have a pretty strong tie to Apple. Apple really likes to keep you, as Larry was talking about, the phrase is kind of the ecosystem. They really want you to stay in their ecosystem. Everybody wants your eyeballs and your wallet. So Apple tries very much to keep you inside their world. And you can add apps to an iPad only through the App Store. But through a Mac, it's a little bit more open. You can get different kinds of software for a Mac. And the last one now is Google has a dog in this fight too. but it's really just like the Android operating system. It's an operating system. So again, these are called Chromebooks, and a Chromebook has hardware that's made by any company in China or South Korea that wants to. The operating system equivalent to the Android on the phone is called Chrome OS. These Chrome books or Pixel books are sold by a broad range of retailers. They can be very inexpensive. I love talking about them. I'll talk about them later. The customers, you may be very associated with Google as you're using it, or you can put all kinds of software on it and be just related to whatever companies you are mostly working with on it. And you can add apps from any place on it. It's very open. I talk a lot about Chromebooks later because of their ability, because of their accessibility. So here's our wrap up for tablets and computers. Things that run on Apple-y stuff are Macs and iPads. Things that run on that Chrome software are called Pixelbooks, Chromebooks. And things that run on Windows operating system are called Windows PCs. Microsoft makes their own, they call it Surface, but those are things that make Windows. And I'm going to pause here for short questions. And I don't have to leave exactly at our designated time, but short questions just on the division of these three types of computers. We've got our 2 phone systems and we've got 3 computery systems. So a couple minutes of questions or clarification on anything that wasn't sort of clear.
I have a question.
Okay.
I'm wondering, after 9 frustrating times going to the Apple store, I needed to buy a new computer. They told me that I needed to buy Windows 365 because you have to lease it now per year for my MacBook Air. Is it needed to read old documents that were created in Word if I don't use it?
Ooh, so not so much. And that is one of the most beautiful things that we'll be talking about at the end, because Office products are available on the web. You don't have to download it and have it on your computer. So we'll talk about that right at the end. That's Office 365 is one of the big things I see people overbuying a lot.
Yeah,
because they tell you to do that, and if you don't know what you don't know, if you're just going to read some old thing, why do I want to spend $150 on some software that I'm never going to use otherwise, right?
Right, every year. Okay.
Yes, software is a service now. You don't just buy your software, you kind of rent it, right? I'm going to scoot on. So we've got our 3 computer types, 2 phone types, and this will just be a quick overview of some basic software that people use. And I want lots of questions at the end like that about the mixing stuff together. So when we talk about apps and software, the first thing we're going to talk about is exactly what was just brought up, which is being able to write a document, write a spreadsheet, make a presentation. So Microsoft, of course, is the boss of all this because most of the business computers run some version of Microsoft productivity software. So everybody feels like they have to buy 365 at the end. I'll show you some options. But I just want to show you that Microsoft makes Word to type like letters and things, Excel to make a numerical spreadsheet, and PowerPoint to make slideshows like what you're watching. This is a PowerPoint slide. Apple has the equivalent software. Theirs is called Pages. Their spreadsheets are called Numbers, and their slide software is called Keynote. If you have an Apple device, these come with your stuff. Google also makes this kind of software. Docs does the same things that Word and Pages does. Sheets does Excel and Numbers does, and Slides makes Slides. Google stuff is all free, and it works on all these devices, right? Microsoft stuff has free elements. If you go on the web, they have free elements now. You just have a Microsoft account and you can use slightly simpler versions of Word and Excel, but you could do it. So one of our things we're going to talk about later is not getting locked into, I've always used X, so I'm afraid to try Y. If you're just writing basic letters, Google Docs is going to be pretty comfortable for you. Right. Software again. Email is a kind of software. You might be somebody who has a Microsoft-based software, Outlook, MSN, Hotmail. You might be somebody with an Apple kind of email, John Smith at iCloud.com. Or a Google email, Bridget, ag@gmail.com. These are the emails that these companies have created. There's a million others, Frontier and Comcast and everything for domain. They also have each their own special browser. Google has Chrome. Chrome is when we Google something, we're using Chrome. Apple, if you want to look at something on the internet and you have a Mac or an iPhone, it's going to pop up Safari unless you've told it to go somewhere else. And for Microsoft, theirs is now called Edge. If you are still using Internet Explorer is what it's been for decades. If you are still using Internet Explorer, I urge you to stop today. It's no longer supported in terms of security. The websites that you go to know that you're using Internet Explorer, and it basically sends out a signal that says this person is not as aware of their software vulnerabilities as they should be. Okay? If you're using Internet Explorer, stop using Internet Explorer. Edge is free. It's probably already on your computer. And start using Edge and make new bookmarks. Okay? Last thing about software is cloud storage. So cloud storage, just want to do a quick definition of what is cloud storage. Cloud storage, when you save something on your computer, as you know, you save it to a little hard drive. Maybe you also back it up to a little thumb drive or something, or maybe you don't know where it goes, right? You just know that it's saved on your computer. Well, cloud storage means not only is it saved on your computer, but it goes up through the clouds, like us to envision, through the clouds to the heavens, and it rests on clouds. It rests on big hard drives that are owned by Microsoft or Apple or Google or Dropbox, or confusingly, there's also a company named Box in addition to Dropbox. There's all kinds of cloud storage options. Samsung has their own storage. So it's just stored in your computer and it's stored somewhere else too. All three of these companies have different, and Linda, here's where we talked about this lingo. Microsoft's cloud storage for regular people is called OneDrive, and you get 5 gigs free. Apple has iCloud, you get 5 gigs free, and Google has Google Drive, you get 15 gigs free. What do you care about this? Well, if you're somebody who takes pictures on your phone, if you somebody who has anything that's irreplaceable on your computer, you want to make sure that it's also in the cloud somewhere, or it's backed up in some way, so that I'll have people tell me, well, I back up everything to this, box that I have and I put it in the cabinet. Like, okay, so if your house burns down or if there's a flood, it's still gone. So by having it in 2 remote places, it's really safe. Okay. Now I'm going to say, what do you care about this? It's because your safe deposit box, your cloud storage, you can kind of mix and match it. Like, you don't have to use the one that just comes with your phone or the one that comes with your computer, but you do need to have some, and you do need to know who or what is going where. So I'm going to pause here, our last pause before we get into the big stuff, and see if there's any questions about the software that I talked about or about cloud storage in terms of who does what, or any clarification, because I know this gets a little, and there'll be notes coming out after that. You're going to get this slideshow afterwards. So any questions about the software, email, cloud storage?
One thing I noted, okay, it looks like Google, they offer 15 gigabytes free, which looks like it's 3 times what the others do. But the catch is that this also includes what you have on your Gmail.
Yes. So it's everything that you kind of deal with Google goes there. And
Right.
your email, email in and of itself, text email doesn't take up a ton of space. I mean, you might have 20 years at this point worth of Gmail, which does take up some space, but email itself doesn't take up too much. Pictures take up a lot of space, movies take up a lot of space. Yeah. So, and all of these offer, once you fill these up, your iPhone needs some space for its phone backups and your iPad backups. But most of these are actually, it's pretty cheap to bump up to the next level from them. But yeah, but Google has their model of let's give it away for free and catch all the information. Okay, so I'm going to step into what do we do with this? Thanks, Bridget. So what the heck do I do with this now? Besides impress my kids when I know what's what. Well, things have changed since that first slide, that those walled gardens are falling somewhat. So your Apple stuff works on your PC computer and your Google stuff works on both of those. And your phone is practically your computer and your tablet is practically your phone. You can make phone calls on tablets. So everything is a big mix and match now, and things interoperate. So that's great. And it's also confusing. What do we do with this information? We use it to make our tech life smoother. So it helps us decide what to buy next. I'll talk in detail about that in a minute. It directs us how we do our backups and storage. And you really need to be thinking about how you do your backup and storage. If your phone gets dropped into Lake Washington because you're on a walking trip, most phones have some kind of automatic backup somewhere. But if you didn't, you've just lost all your pictures, your contacts, your everything. So your backup and storage. And it helps us talk about interoperability. Interoperability is a big word, meaning the ability to maybe use a Android phone and a Mac at home and using the same things on both and having them do the same, or having an iPhone and a Windows laptop. Or interoperability, I take it to also mean you want to share a calendar with your spouse so that you're not booking doctor's appointments at the same time. Well, you want something that can work on one person's Mac because they just sit and use the Mac, and one person's, Android phone. So we're going to talk about those three elements. And then I want lots of questions about this mishmash, if we can do it. So lots of people that I see overspend, and there's another aspect to overspending. There's an aspect to too much complexity. So lots of people want to, when they retire, they want to bring their same computer from work, or they want an identical computer from work because I'm comfortable with it. But at work, at Boeing or at UW or wherever, you had an IT team. You had the tech guys who would update it, who would fix it. And, as a plug, that's what I do too. But you had an IT team, so you weren't thinking about the guts of your computer all the time. You just kind of thought about the software you use. And I see lots of clients who have machines that fit the complexity of when they were designing things, but they're too much for what you're doing now. So think about what you need and think about the options. If you are really just looking up things on the internet and using Gmail, you might look at just getting a Chromebook, because Chromebooks update themselves very easily. It's very easy to kind of restart them, to scrub them and restart them, because everything is saved on Google, as I think it was Richard who noted that everything is saved in your Google Drive. So if you need to sort of wipe off your computer, it's like you could get everything back in a second because everything's in the cloud. You may be used to dragging around a big laptop when you travel or go on vacation. It may be that having a light tablet is going to be more comfortable to use. but you want to use the same software. So thinking about what you use it for and knowing that a lot of these things can work on all different devices. I'm not somebody who works on my phone, but I know you've all seen people who basically run a business out of their phone, right? So thinking about that you're not overbuying. What do you want to do? And what's the comfortable, reasonable way to do that? So lots of people want to buy Office 365. Well, you can if you need to, but if you're never going to use Excel to make spreadsheets and you're never going to make PowerPoint, Word, if you go to Microsoft.com, you have to just make your Microsoft account if you don't already have one, and you can use Word for free. And I expect that you can also upload old documents and look at them in Word. Like, you don't really need to have a current Office 365. I think it's very easy for technicians and companies to just say, buy this and do this. And you might, I don't know your exact situation with the exact documents and things, but really try out the free version of Word. You're not going to be able to do a big, robust newsletter or a big, robust, if you're used to doing a lot of graphic design, like if you were a graphic designer, it's not going to do that for you, but it's going to do quite a bit, and it's absolutely free. Google Docs and Google, all of Google's 3 things, they will work on all of these devices. They will work on phones. They will work on everything. And they're really designed to be simple and easy to learn. So knowing what's available helps you avoid overspending and making your life too complicated. MacBooks are $1,500, $2,000 easy. They're gorgeous and wonderful. And maybe a $300 Chromebook will do the same thing for you. Okay. With this knowledge about these different things, you can also make choices about where your stuff is stored. What's the exciting thing about the cloud? It stores it and keeps it safe. And it also, cloud storage things allow you to share when things are shared in the cloud. It's not just thrown on the ground like a messy closet. You have little folders. You can share folders with specific people. So you can give your family access to all of your pictures that are on the cloud without having them look at your other things. So it's important that you know which ecosystem, which of Google, Apple, Microsoft world you want your stuff to sort of be stored in. Everything can be stored in Google Drive. And my pictures that I take on my iPhone automatically go up to my Microsoft OneDrive account. So it's those are those walls breaking down. It didn't used to be, and boy, Apple does not want you to use anything but Apple. But those walls are breaking. So you can just use what's comfortable and tie together what's comfortable, or tie together you and your spouse's systems in ways that work for you. And that's that last part, which is, the interoperability, meaning when you go, maybe you just sit at your desktop at home like I do, because I like a big keyboard and a big screen. But when I'm traveling, I just maybe want to carry something small with me. But you know what? My Gmail works everywhere. If you are on Gmail, you can use Gmail easily everywhere, and you don't need to. Apple, I love Apple, but Apple says when you go to the Apple store, okay, we're going to set up your Gmail to come in through this Apple Mail app. Or maybe you have a Windows device and they go, okay, we're going to tie up your Gmail. We're going to put your Gmail through Windows Mail. And there's just no benefit to that. Just use Gmail as it comes in a little Gmail app or just from their website. There's no reason to tie it into this complexity. So Gmail works everywhere, and you don't need to tie it into Apple Mail. People will all the time Apple did some kind of update recently, and it messed up a lot of settings in people's Apple Mail. And I'd look and go, you have Gmail, but it comes into your computer, and now it kind of goes through Apple. Why? Because Apple wants it that way. So Again, you could share a calendar with a spouse. Apple Calendar doesn't play very nicely on other devices. Google Calendar does. You want to be able to travel, vacation, with so many things that are in the cloud, it makes it very easy. So this interoperability, again, I don't use the phone too much for work because for me, having a tiny screen is just not very comfortable, but maybe you do travel and have, or maybe someday we'll travel again, right? I'm thinking about that world in which someday we travel freely again. And you might want a laptop or a tablet. And now I would like to change my view here and kind of open it up to, now I can see everybody, kind of talk about either the lingo or the devices or what's confusing about having one with the other, anything with that information we have now that Linda invited us to those months ago, and talk about it. And no question too basic, no question. This is just totally for beginners. I know you can walk around now and talk about operating systems and devices. So let's go.
I have a question.
Nora.
Lindsay.
Lindsay.
Yes, thank you. I do everything mostly on my iPhone. Works great. I have the 99 cents a month. So the iPhone and pictures and all go up there.
Yeah.
But sometimes I want to use a bigger screen, write a bunch of letters, send them off, so forth. So my Mac was way out of date. So my husband had a Surface, which now is out of date, I'm sure, but it works just fine still. Problem is, it does not have any cloud storage. I don't know how to get any cloud storage with it or whether I even need it. The only main thing I would like it for is it has all of our old pictures on it.
What has your old pictures on it?
The Surface, the Microsoft Surface has the old pictures. They are backed up on an old hard drive.
Oh boy.
Separate.
Yeah.
So I think from what you said, it would be nice if I had iCloud storage for the Surface, mainly for these pictures.
The pictures live on the Surface, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I would say, because the Surface is a Windows machine, you already have the 5 gigs of free Windows storage, and you already have a Microsoft account.
I guess I don't know where it is, how it is, how to find it. And if you have 5 gigs free, where is it? And are those pictures already on there?
No, you have to, nothing is already there. You have to connect them together. So Microsoft, if you don't already have a Microsoft account, and I suspect you do because you have a Surface, I suspect somewhere he is logged in as a name and a password. I suspect somewhere there's a Microsoft thing. I suspect if you poke around on that Surface in the list of applications, it'll say OneDrive, and you can open OneDrive, and you can log in using his information, and it will say, hey, do you want your pictures stored with us? And you go, yes. You're going to have, if it's a Surface machine, they tend to put all that stuff in it already, but you're going to have to tell it, you're going to have to open it up, sign in and say, yeah, back up my pictures to OneDrive. So you've already got it. It's likely already on the Surface. He likely already has an account, but you have to open it up and tell it if he didn't, whenever you guys got that machine.
No, this was too long ago. It was before they even talked about
Surfaces aren't that old. So
yeah,
so Surface should have it. So it should already have OneDrive in it. And if not, you go to Microsoft.com, log in using his credentials or make a new account. Look on your Surface and see what the Surface is tied to. I strongly believe. I would say use OneDrive because it's easiest to do it from that thing.
Can you take things off if this is somehow, if it's been set up and if it's been putting stuff on there, can you take stuff off so you still only have 5 gigs of pictures
Yeah,
left? or
yeah.
something?
Yeah. And
So-
pictures, yeah, pictures, 5 gigs. I mean, it depends on if there's a zillion pictures. It's only, I want to say $20 a year, something 15, $20 a year to have like a terabyte of storage. So it goes from not quite enough for free to all you can eat for pretty cheap. So if you need to jump up for all of them,
Uh-huh.
you jump up. It's not very expensive.
But now that they've closed the Microsoft store,
Mhm.
if you need help, you go to the web and
You
do what?
it is not appropriate for me to do a plug. You read about it, or you find somebody who works with computers and will help you with that.
Okay.
You just kind of, so I would start with looking on the little list of programs that are already on your computer. I expect OneDrive.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Other folks, and I don't have a time limit, Larry. I don't know what if you guys do.
My name's Mary Beth, and I have a quick question.
Sure.
You talked about getting rid of Internet Explorer to use Edge.
Mhm.
Okay, so when updates are installed on my husband's PC, does that automatically change has that changed Internet Explorer to Edge? How would I see that has been shifted?
It wouldn't automatically take away the icon for Internet Explorer.
Okay,
And it wouldn't, you would see the icon for Edge looks to me like something for laundry detergent. Looks like a wave. It looks like a blue and green, like circular wave. There was probably, if you have a Windows computer somewhere around there, it'll have this little wave icon. They like to make it the default. Just use that and delete or just stop using Internet Explorer. So they're not going to automatically take away Internet Explorer, but I think they pretty much automatically shove Edge at you. And if it's not somewhere where you can see, look in that list of programs.
okay, thank you.
Well, I'll ask one.
I think Angie, and then we'll come back. Angie, let me ask to unmute. Hang on. It's easier if I click ask to unmute for Angie. Can you click yes for the unmute? And there we go, Angie. Hi.
Okay, I have a MacBook Air.
Uh-huh.
And when I am installing certain apps, I'm told that my Mac OS version 11 or later is required.
Mhm.
Is that kind of, I should know that and never
All
purchase anything that old?
so your MacBook Air is kind of old, right? It doesn't have,
Right.
yeah. So the software you're trying to install wants newer software. So you should be updating your Mac.
Right. Automatically.
So they can only update so far. So it could be that your Mac is old enough that it can't be updated anymore to the newest software, right? So you're trying to install something and this wants a newer software, and Apple puts these hard blocks on things like, okay, especially iPhones. Oh my gosh. Like if you've ever had an iPhone that like, it seems like 6 years later, it's like, okay, let's throw it away basically. So your MacBook Air is probably, just from what you've described, old enough that it can't have the latest operating system or a newer operating system, and that software you want to install needs that operating system.
Yeah.
The operating system upgrades are big. So if you have a Mac and you're going from, they all have those great names. I guess right now it's Big Sur, and it used to be Catalina, all these great California locations where people who work at Apple can afford to live. Those are big changes. So if you are going to make one of those big changes, just be ready to kind of relearn some things.
Thank you.
Okay. And then I'll somebody, and then Carolyn, I think Richard.
Regarding apps on the Mac, this is a bit related to the last question. Okay, so we can get apps from the App Store, but not all apps are available on the web, on the Mac App Store. So then we can go to the developer's website, and then what I've noticed many times, if I download such an app and install it, then the first time I launch it, I'm often given this ominous looking warning like Apple cannot guarantee the safety. And then I just use my best judgment, like, well, I downloaded it from a website that I think is reputable. And sometimes there's no other choice because it's not on the Mac App Store. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what you're paying the big Apple bucks for, is to have the nerds in wherever they are comb through that software to make sure there's nothing yucky on it. So
Right.
they're telling you, we didn't look at this, so it's your own risk. So, I don't know. Were you a skydiver? What's your risk tolerance?
Right. And some of them that aren't on the Mac App Store, like I think I'm quite sure that they are still reputable.
Sure.
And so that's the challenge. Like, how do you really tell?
Sure. Well, if it's a reputable company, if it's LastPass or something, which doesn't throw up that, but if it's Vladimir's discount software for you,
That's right. Yeah.
There was a question about my Gmail getting full. Somebody says my Gmail gets full. I can go to the oldest entry and delete 50 at a time. When you say your Gmail gets full, that's Carolyn. You have 15 gigs of storage. So I've been using Gmail for decades and still haven't filled it. So is it the page that looks full? I'm not quite sure. What I would say to Carolyn is email, plain old email, doesn't take up much space. I think it's really easy to, if you use Gmail in such a way where you see the promotions, they divide it up into email that's important to you, email that comes from social media, and then like not junk mail, but subscriptions from catalogs or people trying to sell you things. Like, it's very easy to go in and delete those. But Carolyn, it surprises me that, and I don't know if Carolyn is still on. Okay, there you are, Carolyn.
Yes.
Are you getting a message that says your Gmail is full?
Yes, it says that it's about 96% full. And so I can go through 50 at a time and delete a couple thousand, and maybe it goes down to 95%. But if I want to delete a whole lot, I haven't figured out how to do it.
I would go to Google Drive and figure out what else is up there. I would be surprised if that was all just email. It's not impossible, but I would be surprised. Mike, is your thing related to that?
No, it's something else. I have a question.
Then let me just real quick.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
So when you're in Gmail, and do you do it through Apple or through anything, or just like Gmail?
Just Gmail, and I have those three categories: the social and the promotions.
In the upper right side, there's what I call the box of dots. It's in the upper right hand corner is a box of dots, and it's all the different kinds of apps that you are given free. That's a great class, Larry. I don't know if everybody wants to learn all the free stuff that Google gives you. There's something called Drive, and you click on it and it'll show you that's what's taking up your 15%. So I would go in there and I would take a look at that. We won't talk about it right now, but I'd be surprised if you had 15 gigs of just mail. Okay, now Mike.
Okay, this is for Aljoya also, both of you. How about doing a session like this on smart watches? It's a really great thing for seniors to have with all the health apps it has on it. It also has some of them have fall prevention. I would love to learn about that. Or I'm sorry, fall detection. I would love to learn about that. I'm really interested. I'm intrigued by the technology. It sounds great.
That is such a good idea. And I'm going to throw one thing in there, which is that when we talked about the Apple and Android, it's easy to talk about Apple watches, iWatches. When you talk about all the other watches, now it becomes each one is substantially different. So it's hard It's apples and oranges. I agree. It's great. And you can make your watch pretty much like a life alert. You can make your phone like a life alert, basically. But
Yeah.
it is hard to mix Apple and all the others. But that's a great idea. I'll I see another hand. I don't know if Richard's hand is still up from last time, or if anybody, other people who haven't asked questions, don't be shy whatsoever.
Hi, Bridget.
Yes,
Hi,
Linda.
this is Janet. We do
Janet.
have a couple chat
Oh,
questions that I
okay.
can share with you.
Yeah, okay, let's do that.
Yeah. So the first one is from Carolyn. And her question is, my Gmail gets full very easily.
Answered that one.
Yeah. Oh, pardon me?
Did that.
You did that.
Did that.
Richard also offered you can automatically label certain Gmail messages that match a certain criteria and then delete all messages that have that label. He's just sharing that with everybody.
Yes, and that is
I
possible.
wondered. Oh yeah, I just mentioned that because I had exactly the same problem on Gmail. It was filling up, and then I didn't want to like manually. It got sort of tedious to look for like what can I delete, but because you can set it up to automatically label things that meet a certain criterion, then you can kind of in one fell swoop delete those. And that's worked pretty well.
That is pretty good.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, Bridget, we went way over our time. Are you still okay for a few more minutes?
I sure am. If there are questions, I'd be good until lunchtime. If anybody would love to have questions from people who are feeling like I'm not really sure what she said about whatever it was, and could that be clarified, or could that be, and I think there's something coming in from chat. Computers.
So
Great.
this is Linda, and I do have a question. This is
Uh-huh.
really a lot of information and a lot of terms.
Uh-huh.
And it seems that it just gives us so many choices that
Yes.
you need to just decide what you want to use for your Word, Excel. I mean, which one of them you want to use, and keep using that same one and not jump around between them, because you can't find documents. You can't find things if you use all the different choices. So I guess that's what I am learning, is that I need to decide what I want to use.
Or not, well, how do I say that? It's where you store them is almost more important. Yeah, I would say when you're using a document to write letters or write things, I would say it's good to use one. But what matters more is where you save them to versus what you use to make them. So like when you open Word, Microsoft Word on your computer at home, it basically says, oh, here are the last things you made in Word, right? So it's like easy that way.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with all of them. Like, oh, here's the last thing you did. But let's say you want to go a different way. Let's say sometimes you use Word and sometimes you use Google Docs. I can't think of a good reason to do that, but you could just go to this place where the documents are and you go, the letter to the landlord. And if it was made in Word, it'll open in Word. If it's made in Google Docs, it'll open Google Docs.
Right.
So there's two ways, but there's no benefit to using more than one. There's definitely no benefit. But if you don't want to pay for Office 365, give Google Docs a try.
Right.
And thank you, Linda, again for your comments last time. Okay, Sue says, you want to read this one, Janet?
Sure. Computer is Windows, phone is Samsung, Note 8, OneDrive is full, Google is full. Should I pay for more storage of one or the other?
Okay, great question. It says, to clarify, it's due to the photos. She has a lot of big photos and 300 gigs of photos.
Wow.
So our OneDrive is full and Google is full. Are they both full of these? You have 300 gigs of photos somewhere. Where That's, where are the 300 gigs of photos? Where do you take your photos? Where do you like your photos to be? You should pay for one or the other. You should pay for the one that's easiest for you. Either one is fine on your PC. Okay. So if it's on your PC, because your PC is a Windows machine, I would suggest OneDrive, although any of them are possible. If any of them is possible. So of OneDrive and Google, it's just going to be which one is very convenient for you. So OneDrive, it works very well with Windows machines. So for 300 gigs, you would be buying $20 a month. I mean, $20 a year, whatever it is, 20, 30, something like that a year to get a terabyte. So you could have 3 times as many photos there. So I probably, if you want to stay connected to Windows, to Microsoft, I would do that. You can also do Google and have it work, Google Drive easily. You can use Carbonite to back up as well. Good. So I would still go with one or the other. It's good to have Carbonite as well. I don't do kind of a backup like that, but because most of my things are in the cloud, so I can walk into for most of the things I would do, I can walk into any computer in the world and log in and get my Google stuff or get my Microsoft stuff or get my Apple stuff. So that's pretty good. Any other questions about the stuff we covered or about how you'll, like what more questions that rose for you in your stuff?
And you answer a question that's a little bit off these subjects as to print a series of text messages when you're on Verizon messaging. Is it possible?
That's without like looking at your stuff, that wouldn't be something I could really easily do. With text messages, generally there is a way that they can be saved. Generally you go from a computer into your wherever those things are saved and print them. It's not really easy to deal with text message stuff, but that would be very specific to your thing. It is good to back up. I have some voice messages from my mother, which are saved forever.
Very sweet.
Okay. I was told to buy more iCloud storage. Now I have double entries on my phone contacts. How do I get rid of double entries? Well, Diane, that's real specific to how you have your phone set up, what kind of phone system you have, what kind of thing. I don't know how that's tied to your iCloud storage or what devices you have, but oftentimes there's when you imported the contacts, there was a check mark for, don't import duplicates. Without more specifics, I would say manually delete the duplicates. Hopefully it's not thousands of them, but that's going to be a little different for every system.
Do you delete them from the computer or the phone? This is what happened at the Apple store. I ended up with double entries, so I didn't know how to get rid of them. They said you had to go to iCloud or something on the computer.
If they said go to iCloud, go to iCloud. iCloud is iCloud.com on your computer is a way to get to the back end of most of the stuff that's on your iPhone. So it's a way to see the things in your iPhone, that data, without actually being on an iPhone. There may be a setting in iCloud that says eliminate duplicates.
Okay, I'll look.
Yeah.
I was just wondering also if I uploaded all my documents and my photos to iCloud because I was resisting doing that for so long. I was doing an external drive. And so they said, you need, because of photos, you need to that. And so they, you might as well just upload your documents.
Uh-huh.
I was wondering, do you still have access to the documents without Wi-Fi?
Yes, so that's a great question. When you use cloud stuff, you can choose to have everything just in the cloud or in both places. So if it's in both places, then you're always going to have access to it locally too. So if you don't have the cloud, it's local too. But if you have an enormous amount of things that's bigger than what your phone can hold, then you won't have access to it.
Okay. That has to do with a setting on the computer though, that has to be set to be able to.
Yes,
Okay.
like on OneDrive, it's like, do you want us to just take everything and save your space on your phone and just hold it all up here? Or do you want it in both places?
Okay.
Yeah.
More specific question.
Yeah.
So,
I'm still confused about how interoperability and how that specifically works. So for Nora, so meaning it's your Lindsay, but you show up, the name Nora
Right.
shows up first, sorry. So you'll always be
That's
Nora
fine.
to me.
That's fine.
So are you talking about in terms of like Google Docs or something, or?
Yeah, I'm still looking at the iPhone versus the Microsoft tablet and how I can share. I can't figure out how I could share or work or what difference it would make to me.
Okay. All right. So you have an iPhone.
Yeah.
And a Windows, I'm going to call it a laptop like mine.
Right.
Right. You have a Windows thing. So interoperability for me means Gmail, my Gmail account is exactly the same on both of them.
Yeah.
So exactly the same.
That's fine.
I use OneDrive to save my documents. So anything that I want to see that's in OneDrive, I can see it from my laptop, or I can go to OneDrive on my phone and see it there.
So wait, so is your phone an iPhone?
Yes.
So you can see OneDrive from your iPhone?
Yes, I can see into my Microsoft Vault from my iPhone.
So is that through Safari?
Nope.
How do you get to it?
It's an app. It's that when we talked about customizing our phones in the beginning.
Yes. Yes.
I can't find it to show you what it looks like. It's a little, all right. It's a little app from the Apple App Store. You download OneDrive. You sign into it using your Microsoft account. And then it gives you the ability to view everything on your OneDrive account. And my pictures that I take on my iPhone, automatically go into that OneDrive account. So they don't.
How do you get that done? How do you say that?
You have to go into your photos and your camera and your settings and tell it where to. You have to have OneDrive on your phone. You have to be logged into it, and then you go into your iPhone settings and say, put this stuff here.
Okay.
So interoperability interoperability works better. A lot of Apple stuff doesn't work well. Like if you have Outlook, if you use Outlook for business stuff, you can easily see that. There's an Outlook app that you can download on your iPhone. What doesn't work great is the other way. So seeing your iPhone calendar, your Apple calendar, does not work well trying to find it somewhere. Google works great everywhere. Microsoft works pretty great out everywhere. Apple is accepting things coming in, but not super great at sharing outward.
Well, is there anything else specifically that would be very helpful other than the pictures in the OneDrive?
To have on your iPhone?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I probably have about 80 things here on my phone. It depends on what do you want to do in life? What do you want to do?
I mean, in terms of interoperability is what I was talking about.
What do you use? So this is that big question. What do you use on your laptop? Make a little list. These are the things I use on my laptop. Is there a way? Are there apps in the iPhone App Store? You know, Word is there. OneDrive, whatever you're doing, and look and see if they have something in the Apple App Store. But be very, very careful that when you download something from any app store, that it really is what you want. Because if what you want is Word, I guarantee you there's 6 other things that are going to look like Word, and they're going to try and make you think that it's Word. And like, make sure that what you're downloading is actually from the big company, not Vladimir's discount software version of Word. Like,
Thank you.
words, words to type or something. And nothing against anyone named Vladimir. We have a chat question, I think. We're planning to upgrade from a desktop with Windows 7 to a new desktop with Windows 10. Very good in terms of security. Are there some generic traps in bringing Word documents, etc. across? No. But make sure that, do you have those documents stored anywhere besides your Windows 7 machine? Are they backed up somewhere? Are they I can unmute. No, they're just on your Windows 7 machine.
Right.
Well, number one, it's really good that you're doing that, because your Windows 7 machine is probably old enough that it could break at any time and you might lose those things. So that's good. If you know how to do that, you can do that. There's no generic trap. It's just you have to know, you have to physically get the data from that Windows 7 machine into the Windows 10 machine. I think if you are following their instructions, I think you could do it with a cable between the two of them. If they were in the cloud, it wouldn't matter. If they were in OneDrive, you would upload them to the cloud, and then so there's nothing, but it's really good that you're doing that so that they aren't at risk anymore. And when you have that Windows 10 machine, I encourage you to look at OneDrive, because it's going to come with it. It's going to come with 5 gigs of storage, and that way you've got another place where they are. But good on you for upgrading. And just be ready to spend a little time feeling frustrated and trying to find things again, because it's a big change. Think of it as a very boring vacation, a very boring tech vacation. You're going to be sitting in front and looking at it a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Oh, I don't know, Aljoya maybe is wanting us to wrap it up maybe in a minute. Maybe one more question, if anyone has one, or not. And you can, in a little while, we will be sending out, I have to do some notes for them. So later on today, I'll get them to that. And so probably tomorrow, you'll be getting a follow-up email, I think, from Aljoya about this.
Yes, any information you can send along would be great. And we really applaud all those who attended today, because this is all daunting information that there's so much to learn, and you're helping give us clarity. So we thank you very much for that. And also, with all the good things that you're doing, our next event that we're having here is from the AARP on scam jams. So scams that all this information that Bridget's telling us about, then sometimes someone will send you an email that you're not familiar with, or you respond to it, and they want to capture information from you. So immediately, that's going to be our next topic next month. But we will be talking to Bridget again. But in your feedback forms, when you send them back to us, jot down there what you'd like to know. Like Mike mentioned, smartwatches, or getting the cloud to from your phone to your computer, or vice versa. Or send us these type of topics that we can talk with Bridget, and we can dovetail with something that everyone can benefit from. So we'll work on that too.
Sounds good.
And Janet, anything for you to say? Are you good?
Just thank you, Bridget. I found your presentation incredibly informative, and I'm sure everybody else did. We all learned something new today. And if you have any other questions about Aljoya, Mercer Island, or you'd like to take a tour down the line, don't forget about us. We can be reached at 206-230-0150.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bridget, for staying a half hour over. And thank you all for your participants. a big high five to you, and everybody high five her. And give us all a high five. Yeah. Woo.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, we're gonna
Thanks, Sue.
hang up now, and thank you all very much.
Yes.